This episode is brought to you by Heyday. Feeling stressed? Take a moment for yourself with Heyday. Stroll through rows of golden wheat, tend to cute barnyard animals, and discover the joys of a digital farm retreat. You don't have to hop in a car or catch a plane. Escape to the farm at the tap of a finger. With Heyday, you're not just tending to a farm, you're tending to yourself. Heyday. Search Heyday, that's Hay space DAY, in your favorite app store. Heyday is a free-to-play mobile game and offers optional in-app purchases and random rewards.
You're listening to What She Said with me, Candace Sampson, and this is your weekly reminder to take up big space in life, laugh loudly, absorb new knowledge, and continue to grow and expand. What She Said is your space for the big conversations that matter and the little joys that make life sweeter. This is where empowerment meets self-care and mansplaining has no seat at the table. So grab a coffee, get comfy, and let's jump into it because life's too short not to embrace the good stuff while we tackle the tough stuff.
As much as we can see how far we've come in terms of stigma, I think, it is still there. I know for myself, when I was struggling with anxiety and depression and I was battling an eating disorder, no one knew, not even my closest friends and the people I lived with at the time. They didn't know. I really hid it all. So I think there is this sense of not wanting to be seen as struggling, not wanting to be seen as, I'm going to use air quotes here, weak, because a lot of us still make that association that if we're struggling with our mental health, that there's something wrong with us, that we're broken. And I don't think that's the case. I think we're living in a society that is not set up to help us flourish and succeed.
That's Heather Lillico, and she's on a mission to help you cultivate calm in a world that seems designed to keep us in constant chaos. In this episode, we talk about why women are bearing the brunt of anxiety and burnout, the sneaky shame that still surrounds mental health struggles, and how small daily habits can make a big difference in how we feel. Heather shares her own journey with anxiety and why traditional treatments didn't work for her, and she walks us through the mindset, movement, and nutrition practices behind her wellness app, Cultivating Calm. Whether you're already in the thick of it or just trying to stay ahead of the spiral, this one's a gentle but important listen. Let's hear what she said. Heather, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thanks for having me, Candace. Really, really happy to be here.
This is a really important topic because we are in Mental Health Awareness Month. So let's start with a check-in. How would you describe the current state of mental health in Canada right now? I'm chuckling a little bit because I have a feeling it's not very good, but you can elaborate maybe.
Oof. Yeah. If I were to use one word, I would say rough. Rough would be the word. And now I might have a slightly different opinion because I work with folks who are struggling and have anxiety. So I'm seeing people who are struggling. But honestly, what I've noticed is that since COVID, there has been a huge shift that people are struggling, people are overwhelmed, that our world has changed. And a lot of us are struggling to cope. And when I do a lot of corporate work as part of my work. And when I go into companies, I see that there's a big shift happening, that a lot of employees are either leaving jobs or going on leave. So while it is rough, I think also there is a turning point happening in that people are standing up and saying, you know what, I really have to prioritize my mental health and prioritize me. I want to live a calmer and happier life. And now is the time to do it. So I think there is a shift happening.
It's interesting that you say that. I agree with you. I think COVID sort of broke us a little bit as a society. We sort of hit that breaking point where we were all feeling the strain of everything. It was just too much at one time. And of course, the world hasn't slowed down since then. It just keeps sort of speeding up with the news and the stress levels. So it's interesting that you're saying people are starting to say, you know what, I want something different. I'm going to start looking at how to do things differently. And I think that is happening on a grand scale. So we talked about what's driving it. Can we just focus in on women specifically for a minute?
Absolutely. I think, women are at greater risk of anxiety, which is the area that I focus. And what we see is there's so much expectation, I think, is a really big reason behind it. There's the expectation that's sort of put on us by society and all of the many roles and hats that we have to wear. And then there's these kind of self expectations as well. I mean, I work with perfectionists, so there's this standard that we can impose on ourselves that we feel like we have to meet. And the result is that we haven't learned how to relax, how to regulate our nervous system. And so we're go, go, go all of the time. And the result is that we end up burnt out and exhausted and really not able to show up in our lives how we want to because we simply haven't taken care of ourselves first. Because oftentimes, what I've seen is like the deeper belief is like we don't believe deep down that we're worthy or deserving of this time for ourselves. And so we put everyone else first and give everyone else our love and attention. And the result is that we're kind of left with crumbs for ourselves. So that's really something that that I'm hoping to help shift, is to give women the power to know that they are worthy and deserving of this time for themselves.
Absolutely. And as much as, conversations in and around mental health have moved into the mainstream, it's become very common. There's still some shame and resistance when it comes to asking for help. Why do you think that is?
As much as we can see how far we've come in terms of stigma, I think, it is still there. I know for myself, when I was struggling with anxiety and depression and I was battling an eating disorder, no one knew, like not even my closest friends and the people I lived with at the time. Like they didn't know. I really hid it all. So I think there is this sense of not wanting to be seen as struggling, not wanting to be seen as, I'm going to use air quotes here, weak, because a lot of us still make that association that if we're struggling with our mental health, that there's something wrong with us, that we're broken. And I don't think that's the case. I think we're living in a society that is not set up to help us flourish and succeed. So that comes along then with a lot of shame of standing up and saying like, hey, something's not working for me here. I gotta shift some things.
And, something I think about a lot is, when my daughter was younger, she had chronic pain and the thing that they said was, once pain gets away from you, it's very hard to catch up with. And I think it's the same with your mental health. Once, it starts to degrade and get away from you, it's very hard to catch up with it. So what does managing anxiety and your mental health look like from a preventative perspective?
Yeah, I think this is where we lean into our habits. Like, what are we doing every day that sets us up to live that calm, happy version of ourselves that we all have inside and that we all want to be? It's really, what are we doing every day consistently that is going to help us, live that way. So, for example, like if we're waking up in the morning and we're checking our phone right away, we're checking the news, all of these things that are like
Guilty.
fine, and no judgment, no shame here. Like this happens for so many of us. But if that's how we're starting our day, that's really just already throwing us into a state of stress, right? So what if, as like a preventative kind of measure, what if we started our day with a couple of deep breaths, or if we popped on a meditation and just were guided to start our day more intentionally? I think we got to start to think about, what are we doing every day? Because your habits will really tell you what you believe about yourself. And so if we want to have this belief that we are worthy of this time for ourselves, that we are happy and calm people, then it's our habits we got to turn to.
It's so funny. Immediately this morning, the first thing I did is wake up and look at the phone. It is the first thing I do most mornings. And I know, like in my head, rationally, I know this is the worst thing I could be doing. And I also know that there is nothing I can do to prevent the world spinning off its axis like it is right now. Yet I feel compelled to grab that phone and know what's happening. And so there's a disconnect, I think, between that compulsion to grab the phone and obviously to ignore it in the morning and start the day the right way. So do you address that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think this comes from the deeper sort of like subconscious beliefs that are happening, because a lot of us will, I mean, first of all, let's just say like the news is designed to hook us, right? It's designed to like hijack the amygdala, our main stress center of our brain. So it's really well designed like that. And so it does hook us. But a lot of this can come from the deeper subconscious beliefs we have. I mean, there's a reason why, it's like we all know that salad is a healthy choice. We all know that kale is great for us, but why don't we choose it?
Because
Because
poutine is
deeper
better.
subconscious Because there are so many delicious things out there. Absolutely. But it does come down to the deeper subconscious beliefs that if we have a belief that we're not good enough or that we're not worthy, which almost all of us have to some respect, then we are going to end up sabotaging our behavior and our habits. And this is where we have to just get really intentional about what we're doing. And I think even just bring awareness to it, right? The awareness of saying, oh, okay, I'm going into that old pattern right now. I'm going into self-sabotage mode. I know I feel better when I start my day with these other behaviors instead. And the interesting thing is that when we start to shift, just as an example, our morning routine, when we start to shift our morning routine and do things from a more intentional place, is that we start to build trust with ourselves. Because then we've gotten up, we've done the things that we say we want to do to move us forward. And now we start to trust that we have our own backs, and we really start to shift that belief that we are good enough, we are worthy, we are deserving.
Habits are hard to establish, for sure. If there's one habit you believe makes the biggest difference, what would it be?
That's a tough one because I talk a lot about this sort of like holistic approach. And so there is no kind of silver bullet, but a really simple technique that I teach that I can offer to folks is I call it the pause 3. And I do it at the outset of every client visit I have, every meeting I run. And it's just a simple 3 deep breaths. It's inhale through the nose and exhale out the mouth. And it's just building in a little bit of pause so that we can regulate our nervous system. And every time when I do it with a client, I always ask them, how did that feel? And they go, oh, that was needed. That felt really good. And it is really these like micro moments in our day that can help regulate us. I believe it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to spend hours and hours, working on your mindset and doing these habits. It really can be like these short little moments in your day that help you feel grounded and feel calm.
I love that one. I should have done that before I got on this interview with you today because I came running in here, as you know, like a bat out of hell. Oh my gosh, Heather, I'm so sorry I'm late. And if I had just paused and taken those 3 deep breaths, I think that would have made a real difference.
Yeah, for all of us, right? We can benefit from that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you have mentioned that traditional treatments, and I don't know what those traditional treatments are, so I would like to hear what they were. But you mentioned that traditional treatments didn't quite work for you. So what pushed you to explore other approaches?
So when I was in university and I really started to develop anxiety, I went to my doctor and I said, I'm having a lot of anxiety and like, what can we do? And I remember she just pulled out her prescription pad and started writing me out a prescription for anti-anxiety meds. And I said, let's just pump the brakes for a second because I really haven't explored anything else. And I feel like there are some other things that I could do that could help. And to me, I mean, I think there's a time and place for medication. If it's the route someone wants to go, it's totally fine. For me, it was going to feel just like a Band-Aid. Like I wanted to address the deeper root of why was I feeling anxious? Why was I, stressing out when I made a spelling mistake on something? Why was I replaying every conversation I had with friends to see if, how I came across? Like these were the deeper roots I wanted to get to. And so I started to really explore this more holistic, natural approach. And one of the things that I also started doing was going to therapy. And that was really helpful and is a very like traditional treatment for anxiety. And I found that I would have these kind of like big ahas in therapy. And I would start to understand some of the deeper roots. But where I struggled was in between those sessions, I was like, what do I do? Like, what does my day consist of? What kind of habits and structure can I have that's going to help me, sustain that good mood? And so that's where I really started to get into these more holistic modalities of meditation and yoga and nutrition and kind of combining those together. So it wasn't that I was anti-medication. It just didn't feel like the right option for me. And therapy, I think, worked to a certain extent and is still something that I go back to every once in a while to have that extra support and guidance. But where I really needed that gap to be filled was with the structure of my daily routine.
Hilton brings you new ways to stay. With experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. each inspired by local college towns. These stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at graduate hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
What does every USAA member have in common? Family. We're one big family who supports the military community and their eligible families. And if you, your parent, or spouse served, you could join our family and save big on auto insurance. Visit USAA.com/join today to check your eligibility. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
A lot of people still think of practices like meditation or food as medicine as a bit woo-woo. What's something that actually works but still gets brushed off unfairly?
Yeah, I think when it comes to these practices, I mean, the first thing that to understand, and this is where like education comes in, is that these practices are very much evidence-based. I mean, we see that certain foods have, for example, like nuts and seeds are one of the foods that I talk about a lot, that they are rich in minerals like magnesium and zinc, and that has evidence behind them that they help us feel calm and relaxed and produce more GABA in the brain, which is our relaxing neurotransmitter. Things like yoga can help regulate the breath, regulate the nervous system, can help reduce cortisol. Meditation can change the actual structures in our brain, like our amygdala, and how it fires. So these practices are very evidence-based, but they do have, you're right, this kind of like woo-woo cloud over them. And what I would offer to people is that when you start to experiment and explore and just go in with an open mind, then you start to experience for yourself the benefits of these. And I think like on some level, we all know, right? When we eat fresh fruits and veggies, we feel better. We have more energy. Like intuitively, your body already knows that. And when you take these kind of micro moments to just be present, imagine like you're sitting and staring at a sunset, right? You're just totally present and your body just has this sense of ease come over it. Like the body already knows this, that it's effective. And if we were to sort of pick like one habit that I think people can really latch onto and see the most benefit, it would be meditation. That really is what's going to rewire your neural pathways and help you change these kind of anxious thought loops that people can get stuck in. It helps us sort of like interrupt that. And a lot of people think, well, the people I work with, coming from a perfectionist background, if they try meditation and they're not immediately good at it, then they quit. And when I first started meditation, I was like, I have way too many thoughts for this. Like, this is not working. And what I started to see is that meditation can be so many different things. It can be a guided, sit down, have a more formal practice, but it can also be you out for a walk in nature and just noticing the leaves on the trees, noticing the sounds of the birds. It's just the act of training yourself to be present. So I like to make it really accessible for people and just notice these moments that we already have in the day that are mindful, and how can we just boost those more?
Yeah, if I may, I'd like to just share a little bit about meditation for me, because when I started meditating, it was COVID. I was going through divorce. I had teenagers in the house, and people kept saying, "Oh, you should meditate." And I tried. I'd get really frustrated, expecting these big moments to sort of, you would see in the movies where you have these, moments that you go, "Oh, everything is solved, and I understand the world now," and that wouldn't come, and I get frustrated. And I can't remember where I read it or saw it, but it was like, meditation is just about the practice of just coming back to your breath constantly and just focusing on that. That's it. You don't have to think about anything else, just focusing on the breath. And I knew it was really working when I was one day standing at the kitchen doing dishes. And I just started focusing on my breath as I was standing there doing the dishes. And I thought, oh, okay, I get it. And so my mind wasn't wandering off to a million places, terrible, things that could happen. It was just focused on that moment. And my anxiety just came down. I could feel my shoulders sort of relaxing. And I thought, oh, okay, now I get it. Now I understand what this means. And so I think that's the one thing with meditation is people maybe go in expecting these big sort of life-changing, altering moments to come. And that's not quite what it is. So I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Yeah. And you hit on something really important, Candace, is that it is the reason we come through meditation is not so that we can be good at meditating. It's so that we can be good at life. Meaning, so many of us are stuck in our heads and we're caught up in either, replaying things that happened in the past, or anxiety is very future focused. What's going to happen? How's this going to turn out? Can I handle it? And meditation just brings us into the present, truly where life happens, right? Just enjoying like these small moments. I know recently I was with my family and I was just watching my niece and nephew play. And that was life happening. And traditionally, I would be thinking about, okay, I have this big meeting coming up next week. I got a plan for this and how's it going to work out? And I would just be missing my life. And that was honestly one of the worst parts about anxiety is I felt like I was so stuck in my head the whole time. And so meditation offers us this beautiful gift of really being present in our lives. And of course, it requires training to do that, right? Because the mind wants to go off in a million different directions. It's going to think that's its job. So it's training ourselves, just like if you go to the gym and you want to get stronger, you're going to do not just one bicep curl and then leave, right? You're going to go back over and over again, increase the weight, increase the reps. That's what we're doing with meditation, is trying to train ourselves to just come back to the present moment.
I really love that because, again, we just live in a society that's always sort of pushing what's next? What's next? What are you buying next? Where are you going next? What are you decorating next? Where are you eating? Like, it never ends. And that ability to be present in a moment and enjoy a moment, even just a simple one, is, I think, one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves. So that brings us to cultivating calm. What was the moment you knew you needed to build this app?
So I think the moment I knew that cultivating calm would be helpful for people is during COVID, I had shifted my practice to online, as so many people, and I was coaching clients, and I started to run group programs. And the first group program I ran was called 30 Days to Calm. And I started to help people put together these holistic habits of meditating, of eating mood boosting foods, and practicing some nervous system regulating low intensity type of movement. And after the program, people felt calmer. They were making moves in their lives. They were showing up differently. But then when I would check in with people a couple months later, they would say, well, like I kind of fell off of it. Like I didn't stick with it because I didn't have the daily support and structure that I needed. So that's where I realized that if people had something in their pocket every day that they could log in, do their practices, track their practices so that there's accountability, and have a community of people that are behind them and supporting them. I think as women, we need this. We really thrive in community. I thought that would be really effective for folks. And so that's really when I decided to bring Cultivating Calm into existence.
So for someone new to it, can you walk us through a day using the app? What can users expect? Because you say in 30 minutes, right? So what can users expect from those 30 minutes, which seems like a low commitment to make, honestly, for more calm in your life?
So this was always the goal of creating the app, was helping it be accessible and easy for people. Because if you have anxiety, you probably know it's overwhelming. There's a million things on the to-do list. There's so much going on. And so I wanted to create something that was impactful, but also easy for people to follow so that they stick with it, because it really is the consistency that matters. And so it looks like logging in the morning, choosing from a library of meditations. There's ones as quick as 1 minute, as long as like 25 minutes. So it's really whatever you have time for. I recommend 5 minutes of guided meditation. There's also recipes on the app. So that might look like logging in, choosing a recipe that you're going to make that day, or maybe doing some meal prep on the weekend so that you have some healthy options throughout the week. These are recipes specifically designed with targeted mood boosting foods. So they have things like nuts and seeds in them, leafy greens, bright fruits and veggies, and fermented foods. Those are the 4 categories of mood boosting foods in Cultivating Calm. So you have access to recipes. And then there's yoga classes as well. So it might look like at the end of the day, you've come home from work, you just want to relax before bed. So you pop on a yoga class and then you drift off to sleep. Now, those are sort of the loose practices that the app is based on. There's also programs on the app. And this is what I found was really impactful for people, is having that daily structure and support. So for example, there's a free program that I run on the app called the 7-Day Cultivating Calm Challenge. Anyone can take it, totally free to take. And it will help you start to get these habits into place so that you can see just how calm and great you feel working them in every day consistently. And also with the daily programs, it helps you start to understand some of the deeper roots of anxiety, right? Like, why are we sabotaging ourselves and waking up in the morning and diving into our phones? Or why are we preventing ourselves from making the moves and doing the things that we want to do in our lives? So I think that's really important for people to understand, is why we do the things that we do, so that we can shift them and that we can lean more into this calmer version of our lives.
Any success stories or moments from a user that has really stuck with you?
There's one that I can think of from yesterday. I was coaching a client, and she's a member of the app, and she was sharing, it was such a simple experience, but she was sharing how she went shoe shopping with her daughter. She was trying to get new shoes for her daughter. And she said, normally this experience ends up in tears. Every time she's crying because she didn't get the shoes that she wanted. I'm crying because I was trying so hard to make it happen for her and it didn't happen. And she said, we went shopping on the weekend. And afterwards, my daughter said to me, Mom, that was a really fun experience. Like, even though I didn't get the shoes that I wanted, I actually had a lot of fun with you. And when she shared that with me, I just thought, like, these are the moments, like in that moment, because my client had learned how to regulate, how to release expectations, how to stay present in the moment. She totally shifted the experience that happened. And then she created a better connection with her daughter, right? To have a teenager say to you, that was a really fun experience going shopping. I mean, that
As a mother of two daughters, I can tell you that is gold. Yes.
very rare. And I do think that it is in these small moments that we start to shift things. Like when we can show up with more patience, with more presence in our life because we have put these tools into practice, like that's not just when the small moments will start to shift, but really like it adds up to the big moments, right? And just imagine like being more present in your life, even the mundane tasks, then we can be grateful for, because this is, as far as I know, like our one and only shot at life.
So for someone listening who's in the thick of anxiety right now, and I think it's worth pointing out, I think that's most people right now, particularly Canadians. We are just living under a huge umbrella of anxiety right now. So what's the first gentle step someone can take today?
I think you're right. The world is overwhelming right now. There's so much going on. There's so much change. And when we get caught up in that, it can be a lot, and it can feel like it's sucking us under. So I think as a first step, what I recommend to people is focus on what you can control, because you can't control the political climate. You can't control all of that. What you can control is what you choose to spend your time on every day. And my hope is that people spend their time on themselves. You have the power to choose to put habits into place that help you feel calm and help you be the best version of yourself. And at the end of the day, like we can really only control ourselves. But that is a big responsibility, because then how we spend our time matters. So focus on what you can control, focus on the things that move you forward and help you feel good. Because what happens when you are a more regulated and patient person is that ripples outwards. And you start to have an effect on the people around you, your family. They start to see this version of yourself. And then I think that ripples even more outwards into the world.
Absolutely. I mean, it's trite and it's been said a million times, but taking care of yourself is not selfish, it's selfless. You are making yourself better to help other people. So it is really important. Put your oxygen mask on first, all of those things that we hear all the time, and yet we don't do, especially women. That is a real struggle for women, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is what we have to shift, right? Is no longer tolerating ourselves coming last, is standing up and saying, like, I am really going to prioritize myself because I am worthy and deserving.
So where can people find you and try the app? Perhaps you have various levels, right? There's a free. Could you explain those? There's a free level, there's a pro, and there's something in the middle, and I can't remember what it is.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So the goal with the app is always to provide something accessible for people and help them actually make shifts and changes in their lives. So there is a free version of Cultivating Calm. So people can go to the App Store or Google Play or head to cultivatingcalm.ca. There's a free version of the app. There's also a light version of the app that gets you a few more courses and meditations and sort of that library. We also host free monthly masterclasses for light and pro members. So if people want to attend, I usually bring in an expert. We have one today, for example, and I'm bringing in an art therapist who's going to take us through a mandala drawing exercise to just help our creativity flow. And so there's a light membership and then there's a pro membership. The pro membership includes full access to all of the courses. We do live quarterly programs as well. Pro members get access to that. And you also get a couple of bonuses for joining at that level.
All right. Amazing. So can you list off then all the places where people can find it? Is there a website, what app store, social channels, things like that?
Yeah. So if you head to the App Store or Google Play and type in Cultivating Calm, it'll come up. You can also head to cultivatingcalm.ca. Or if you want to check us out on Instagram, you can check out cultivatingcalm.app. And I'm always there sharing different wellness tips and tricks and what I've learned along this journey.
Heather, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me, Candace.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to share it with someone who'd love it too. And don't forget to hit subscribe to What She Said with me, Candace Sampson, on your favorite podcast app. It's the easiest way to stay connected. Want more? Sign up for my newsletter at whatshesaidtalk.com to get all the latest updates, and let's keep the conversation going on social. You can find What She Said on Facebook and Instagram, and you'll find me on Threads, TikTok, and Blue Sky at Candace Said. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week.
I'm Andrea Askowitz.
And I'm Allison Langer. And we are the hosts of Writing Class Radio, a podcast, but we are so much more. We have writing classes. So if you are looking for live online classes where you can join a community, write to a prompt, get feedback, and get better, check out all our classes at writingclassradio.com.
And listen to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts and at writingclassradio.com.
I'm Stuart Murray, host of Humans on Rights, the podcast where we dig into the stories that shape our understanding of human rights, one conversation at a time. I sit down with guests who are making a difference, all sharing powerful insights on what it really means to stand up for human dignity, equity, and justice. We cover the issues that matter with honesty, curiosity, and heart. You can listen to Humans on Rights on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and online at soundoff.network and humanrightshub.ca.
Another Sound Off Media Company podcast.